It's 2024, which means 2016 is not 4 years ago or even 6 years ago. It's now 8 years ago. We are almost halfway through the third decade of the century. The 2000s are now not a nearby memory. The 90s are now retro, and Gen Z is not the youngest generation anymore. What we used to think of as nearby past has now become distant memory. It's hard to comprehend just how fast the time is passing by. I've seen a lot of TikTok and random internet posts about this same feeling. This realization that you are not young anymore, and that many of the things that you grew up with are no longer popular, hits differently. And recently, with all these conversations about Gen Alpha and their disturbing obsession with iPads and social media, it's no wonder that people will feel that the last decade was the final decade when kids had some sanity in them. Add all this to other problems and general hopelessness today, and you get the perfect recipe for feeling nostalgic about the past. So before talking about nostalgia, let's first discuss about 2010s. The 2010s was an interesting decade. It was this era that saw the rise of various social media sites that we now today use. YouTube was getting popular, and with the introduction of sponsorships and more viewers on the site, the number of content creators increased drastically. Instagram was also launched, where people would upload their photos. Facebook was a big thing back then. Other sites like Vine and Musical.ly were also some of the most popular social media sites. Social media was becoming a big thing in this era. More and more people were now connected with internet, and many sites were getting less complicated and more user-friendly, which meant that the audience on these sites grew drastically. Challenges were all over the internet. The ice bucket challenge, the cinnamon challenge, and just all sorts of weird challenges. GTA 5 was launched in 2013 and instantly became one of the most best-selling games of all time. Even after more than 10 years of its launch, people are still playing this game. The gaming industry evolved a lot in this decade. We had Minecraft, Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption, Fortnite, and many other legendary games in this era. And how can I not talk about Minecraft? If there is one game that can define this era, it is none other than Minecraft. Minecraft was extremely popular in 2010s. Not to say it is not now, but in 2010s it was wild, and everyone was playing Minecraft. Some of the biggest YouTubers started their journey playing Minecraft. It was so popular that now many people associate 2014 with Minecraft nostalgia. I have made a whole video about it if you want to check it out. In addition to gaming, 2010s was also an era of great music. Some really popular music were released in this decade. 2010s music is in itself a whole new category, which I can't discuss here in this video. A few days ago, I was watching some old YouTube videos. While I was watching, I realized, how different YouTube was back then. Things were a little cringy by today's standard, but still, things were really different, and it's actually kind of good. And I remember how I used to enjoy watching all the videos back then. I used to wait eagerly for my favorite channels to upload their next video. Nowadays, I hardly find anything interesting on social media as a whole. And I'm not saying that there are not enough people who are making genuine good content. What I'm saying that YouTube for some reason has stopped recommending something new and something really different from what I watch currently. It is only recommending me things that I have already watched or similar things that I watch now. And I have been really getting bored with this, so I decided to watch some old videos that I used to love back in the days. But after some time of watching them, something felt odd. I didn't feel the same way I used to feel when I used to watch them when I was 14. They aren't that enjoyable anymore. They just feel distant, something different, as if someone has changed or altered them. I continued watching more and more, trying to feel the same way as I used to. I watched all the pranks and funny videos that used to make me laugh, all the vloggers that I used to watch. I watched for hours, trying to find the same enjoyment. But all this was a waste. Things don't feel the same way as they used to. Things I used to like are almost indifferent to me now. And even worse, they make me realize how painful things have become now. But why is that the case? Why do I not feel the same way about them as I used to? Because of this, I didn't dare to watch any more of these videos. I was afraid that I would lose all those good memories because of this. I think we all have at some point had the same feeling. When we try to experience our past again in the present, we don't feel the same way as we used to. The places you used to hang out or the games you used to play don't give the sort of feeling that they used to. All the fun you used to get from these things is now gone, and even revisiting those places will not give the feeling of joy back. But why? If we feel nostalgic for the things in the past, then why does revisiting them make such us feel worse? If I feel nostalgic for the old YouTube videos, then why don't I feel happy after watching them? I think this is what the nature of nostalgia is. Nostalgia is not a yearning for the past, a past that was lived, but instead, it's a past that is imagined and idealized to an extent where the credibility of it ever happening can be questioned. Nostalgia depends upon the inaccessibility of this past. We can never actually experience this past because this past, as we idealize, never actually was real. You might be thinking, what on earth does that even mean? Of course, I remember what life was like when I was a child. I remember all the moments when I used to play GT as a kid or watch these videos. How then is the past not real? Well, it does not mean that you don't remember your past or anything, but instead, it's about how you perceive the past through the lens of the present. Of course, I remember myself playing games as a kid, but when I look back, all I can see is an idealized version of the past. A simple past with no worries and unlimited freedom. But in reality, it's not correct. I had other concerns and issues back then, which I no longer feel now. I construct an idealized version of my past without considering that in that I also had a lot of problems. Of course, those problems would not be considered problems now, but still, it cannot be denied that I and everyone else always have issues at every moment of life, which we often forget as time passes. In this sense, nostalgia is less about the past than the present. The unlived ideal of the present is projected upon the past. I may not have been as happy in the past as I think now, but I project this unlived ideal of a carefree childhood on my past, making me feel nostalgic about it. This idealized past is safe, coherent, stable, pure, and beautiful. Everything in it is just so stable and carefree. There are no threats or conflicts in it. It's precisely beautiful because it is a reality constructed by me and for me. The actual past is driven out of sight, and all that is left is this imagined and purified past where selected memories are intertwined to form a reality of its own. Nostalgia feels like something that is lost forever. Something that we used to love and do is no longer there. The past is now buried, and with that, the things of the past are different now. This past actually never really happened, but is a constructed past where memories are arranged in such a way as to create an imagined past. Nostalgia is then not just a thing that is lost, it's a thing that has never actually existed. All of its existence is precisely in the absence of this object of desire. That's why nostalgia is always in retrospect, in reflection. It's not there, but is a result of our idealization of the past. The reason why nostalgia feels so strong is because of this very nature of nostalgia. By structuring an idealized past, it effectively distances us from our own present, a present that is cold, harsh, difficult, and unpredictable. It gives us a past that was the exact opposite of this present. In this way, it is the present only in which nostalgia is created. Nostalgia is not just a simple yearning for the past, but a projection of the past with the dissatisfactions of the present. Because we are dissatisfied with our present, we try to find a time when things were not like today. But we forget that this time actually never existed. In its way, nostalgia can be understood as a mild form of reaction against the harsh realities of the present. When you are constantly busy doing things you don't like, it's easy to feel nostalgic about your childhood when you did not have much work to do. And it's reasonable to feel nostalgic about a past where you had friends and family, when in present most people are suffering from loneliness and depression. I think this brings us to our next point. If we consider our first question about 2010s, then what does this all tell about our nostalgia for the 2010s? While I was going through some Reddit posts a few days ago, I saw an old comment saying that somewhere in 2 or 3 years, people will feel nostalgic about the 2010s. And how funny is it that now that time has arrived, people feel nostalgic about the 2010s. And it's ironic considering people in the 2010s used to feel nostalgic about the 2000s, and in the 2000s, everyone used to think the 90s were great. Now, one can argue that this is because each of these decades has something special of its own. And sure, that's true, but this also means that we will be nostalgic about 2024 in 2034. And someone would probably be making videos about 2024 nostalgia. But what does this really say about today? It can be said that we are projecting an idealized past on the 2010s. But let's not hurry so much in concluding this. Surely there are some good things about the 2010s, like when we start to list all the negative impacts of social media these days. Obviously, you would feel the 2010s was still better than this. The effect of it does not even come close to what it is now. The level of loneliness is also at all-time high. More and more people are now suffering from at least some form of mental disorder. The dating scene is more than worse, and the constant threat of getting replaced by AI is just one of the many problems each of us is currently facing now. And when you look back, no matter how bad 2010s were, they still look far better than whatever is happening now. We had a lot of technology in 2010s, but nothing like the threat of getting replaced by some AI. Nostalgia is obvious in this case. It can be understood as a reaction against the fast technology that is prevailing right now. The term going back to simpler times implies the same idea of getting back to times when everything wasn't dependent on technology. It's because a generation suffering from such nostalgia feels disconnected from the new technologies. Even though it's true that technology has made our lives better, we still feel nostalgic about a past when everything wasn't just mechanized and worked for technology. Don't get me wrong, nostalgia is not just a bad thing. We cannot underestimate the power of nostalgia. This yearning for an idealized past can tell us a lot about our present. For example, if someone is yearning for a past when humans were less lonely and less depressed, no matter if it's actually true or not, it can tell us about our present problems of loneliness and depression. What I want to say is that nostalgia may not be much about our past, but actually it's about our present. It can be a tool to reflect on our past, because remember, nostalgia is made in present. It is the projections of the problems of our present onto past. So we can use nostalgia to know what our present problems are. Now, it can be argued that this lack, this desire, isn't actually something we can fulfill. But surely, by carefully examining it, we can at least get a vague idea about our dissatisfactions. But this process requires us to examine our nostalgia too closely, because it is the nature of nostalgia that paralyzes one's mind and thoughts to arrive at the true cause. Nostalgia is then the direct result of these conditions in real life, and by imagining an idealized past where these problems were supposed to be not there, we grow more distant from both our past and present. This causes one to feel overwhelmed by the burden of the present, and this retreat into an imagined past enables them to find a way out of these problems. Under such circumstances, it is easy to wish for a return to the past again, to go to the places one used to go in their childhood, to watch the shows one used to watch when they were a kid. But this effort to relive the past never brings the kind of satisfaction as one hopes it would. Instead, it deepens the sorrow felt by an individual, because this means that they cannot even find relief in the past now. Rather than giving any comfort or relief, these sweet memories turn into a source of bitter sorrow. Things are not the same anymore. They never were. We try to repeat the past, but it is impossible. How can you repeat a past that never existed? This repetition is just a feverish attempt to feel the imagined past. A past that never existed cannot be relived, and all we are left with are repetitions day by day. Nothing changes. Every day is the same day as the next. But in not changing anything, we have changed a major part of our life. That is, change. The constant change that defines time is the force by which life moves forward. As it is said, change is the only constant. By resisting this change and trapping ourselves in the repetitions of the past, we are changing the very thing that brought about the past that we are trying to live in. You were not attempting to live like a baby again when you were 10. Instead, kids have a desire for the future and to grow up fast to experience the things. They are in the way, the exact opposite of their nostalgic adults. They have the desire to feel and experience the future, what that actually makes someone happy. They do not forget their childhood, but they do not try to memorize and repeat it constantly. By letting go of the past and looking at the present and the future, can there be any excitement to live and thrive? If everything is just an attempt to live in an imagined past, it is hard to see any hope in the future. This is quite visible in our media now. Everything is deeply nostalgic for the past. Everyone on the internet is trying to live like they're in the 90s or the 2000s, or some are even trying to relive the Victorians or the medieval era. Many of these people are dressing up or decorating their homes as if they belong to this era. But in reality, most of these clothes and decorations aren't even historically correct and are just made according to the stereotypes and the constructed past. We are just making ourselves buy more and more clothes and various other things to fit ourselves in that aesthetic. We think that by buying all these various antiques or collecting things from the past, we can live in the past again. We hope to get satisfaction from these objects without realizing that what we are trying to find is not inside these products. There is nothing special about these products. They are just like every other object. But these objects in real life cannot provide us with the satisfaction we are hoping for. At best, they are just a good love for history, and it's a good thing. They were a thing of use and value in the past, but now they have reduced to mere aesthetics. It's nothing wrong. But we should not expect any more than that. Any attempt to relive the past from these objects is just not possible. The conditions of the past when these objects were of some value were radically different from what we now live in. It is only when we let go of this past and start to live in the present and create new memories that we can find relief from this nostalgia. This does not mean that we should forget our past completely. Instead, we should always remember past. And if there is one thing that we can learn from the past is that when we let go of the past and live the present, it is only then we can actually live fully. When you were a kid and watching your favorite movie or playing games, you weren't thinking about some older days. You were living that memory in all its fullness, and that's what makes you feel happy.